Live TV is unpredictable. Anything can happen, and sometimes it takes a terrifying turn. Viewers have seen shocking moments unfold in real time, tragedies, violence, and chilling events that were never meant to be broadcast. In this video, we'll look at 5 more of the most disturbing moments in live TV history. Real events that left audiences in shock and changed television forever. On Halloween night in 1992, millions of people across the UK tuned in to watch a special BBC program called Ghost Watch. It was promoted as a live paranormal investigation, following a family in Northolt, London, who claimed their home was haunted. The show was hosted by well-known TV personalities, giving it an air of authenticity. However, what viewers didn't realize was that Ghost Watch was entirely scripted, a fictional drama designed to look like a real broadcast. What started as entertainment quickly turned into a national controversy. The program featured broadcaster Michael Parkinson in the studio, while TV presenter Sarah Green led the on-site investigation. She visited the home of the Early family, Pamela and her 2 daughters, who had reported hearing unexplained banging, tapping, and scratching in their house. At first, Pamela thought it was a plumbing issue, but as objects began moving on their own and her children developed strange scratches, she became convinced that something more sinister was happening. The family believed a spirit, which they called Pipes because of the banging noises, was behind the disturbances. As the show continued, shadowy figures were seen in the background, and it was suggested that Pipes was the ghost of a man named Raymond Tunstall, a former resident with a troubled past. The program built tension through unsettling moments, making it feel terrifyingly real. The realistic filming style only added to the effect. The shaky camera work, unexpected technical difficulties, and chaotic atmosphere convinced many that they were witnessing a real paranormal event. The fear escalated when Sarah Green entered a cupboard under the stairs and suddenly vanished, seemingly pulled in by an unseen force. Meanwhile, in the studio, lights flickered, equipment malfunctioned, and Michael Parkinson appeared to be in a trance, speaking in a disturbing tone. Then, without warning, the screen cut to a standard BBC News broadcast, leaving viewers in shock. Immediately after the show ended, panic spread across the country. The BBC received over 20,000 calls that night from terrified viewers, many of whom believed they had just watched a real supernatural event unfold. Parents reported that their children were deeply disturbed, with some refusing to sleep alone. Some even claimed to have experienced strange occurrences in their own homes after watching the program. The backlash was intense. Although Ghost Watch had been labeled as a drama in TV guides, many viewers had missed the disclaimer and felt misled. Complaints poured in, accusing the BBC of causing unnecessary fear. Some women reportedly went into labor due to the shock, and many children were left frightened long after the broadcast. Due to the controversy, the BBC decided never to air Ghost Watch again. It was effectively banned from television, remaining locked away for years. However, the most tragic consequence of the program was its effect on 18-year-old Martin Denham. Martin, who had learning difficulties, was deeply affected by Ghost Watch. His parents, April and Percy Denham, said he became increasingly distressed after watching the show, convinced that the events on TV were happening in his own home. 5 days later, he passed away, leaving behind a note that suggested he believed he would become a ghost himself. His devastated parents felt that Ghost Watch played a role in his distress and called for an investigation into the BBC's responsibility. Following Martin's passing, the Broadcasting Standards Commission launched a review. The commission concluded that the BBC had created an atmosphere of fear without making it clear enough that the program was fictional. While the network was criticized for not warning the public properly, no legal action was taken. The show's creator, Stephen Volk, later stated that he never intended for Ghost Watch to cause harm. He had envisioned it as an immersive ghost story similar to the War of the Worlds radio broadcast, which also sparked panic when it aired in 1938. However, he was taken aback by the extreme reactions and the real-life consequences. The controversy damaged the public's trust in the BBC, and Volk understood why many felt deceived. Despite its troubled history, Ghost Watch later gained a cult following. Its unique format influenced found-footage horror films like The Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity. However, its legacy remains overshadowed by the distress it caused and the tragedy linked to it. To this day, Ghost Watch is remembered as one of the most unsettling moments in television history. What was meant to be a spooky Halloween special ended up causing fear and confusion across the nation. For some, it was an unforgettable horror experience. For others, it was a painful reminder of how easily fiction can blur with reality. It was December 29, 1995, in Buffalo, New York. Donald Herbert, a firefighter, was responding to a house fire when the roof suddenly gave way. Trapped under the debris, he was deprived of oxygen for nearly 6 minutes before rescuers pulled him out. The damage to his brain was severe, leaving him in a coma. For months, he remained unresponsive, showing no signs of awareness. His wife Linda and their 4 children, aged 14, 13, 11, and 3, were devastated. Donald was no longer the man they knew. He was blind, unable to speak, and did not recognize his surroundings. Though he sometimes moved slightly, there was no real sign of improvement. He spent his days in a nursing home, completely disconnected from his former life. Doctors did what they could, but there was little hope. Years passed with barely any change. Medical care and therapy kept him stable, but he remained in a near-vegetative state. As time went on, his case seemed hopeless. Then on April 30th, 2005, but almost 10 years later, something astonishing happened. The nursing home called his family with shocking news. Donald was talking. At first, no one believed it, but for the next 14 hours, he spoke nonstop, reconnecting with his loved ones in a way they had long thought impossible. When Linda arrived, Donald looked at her and asked, "Where have you been?" He had no memory of the past decade. When his family told him how much time had passed, he was in disbelief, asking, "How long have I been away?" For the first time in 10 years, he was fully aware. He asked his children about their lives, wanting to know everything he had missed. He listened as they told him about the world's changes and what had happened while he was unconscious. Doctors were stunned. Brain injury patients typically show signs of recovery early on, not after nearly a decade. Medical experts began searching for an explanation. They suspected a combination of medications, commonly used for conditions like Parkinson's disease and ADHD, may have played a role. These weren't a cure, but they might have temporarily restored his awareness. News of Donald's sudden improvement spread quickly. His story made headlines, and people were amazed by the firefighter who unexpectedly regained consciousness after so many years. His case was compared to other rare instances like Terry Wallace, who woke up after 19 years, and Gary Dockery, a police officer who spoke after years of silence. Unfortunately, Donald's improvement didn't last. After that incredible 14-hour period, his ability to speak and interact faded. Though he had occasional moments of conversation with his family, his condition slowly worsened. He suffered frequent infections and was repeatedly hospitalized. As the months passed, his body grew weaker. On February 21, 2006, Donald Herbert passed away at the age of 44 due to complications from pneumonia. His family was by his side, grieving the loss of the man they had miraculously reconnected with, even if only for a short time. Donald's story wasn't just about his bravery as a firefighter. It was about resilience and the extraordinary moment he shared with his family. Linda and their children had never given up on him, even when doctors had little hope. For nearly a decade, his children grew up without their father's presence, but they were given one final chance to talk to him before he was gone. His case raised many unanswered questions. How could someone regain awareness after so many years? Was it the medications, an unexplained medical event, or something beyond scientific understanding? Many families with loved ones in similar conditions reached out to Donald's doctors, hoping that the same treatment might bring their relatives back, even for a brief moment. Donald was laid to rest in Holy Cross Cemetery in Lackawanna, New York. He was honored not just for his service as a firefighter, but also for the mystery surrounding his final days. His case remains one of the most fascinating recoveries in medical history. Though years have passed, Donald's story continues to captivate and inspire. It's a reminder that even in the darkest moments, the unexpected can still happen. It was June 20th, 1991, in Buttsfield County, Durham, England. Harry Collinson, a 46-year-old planning officer, arrived at a property set for demolition. The bungalow had been built illegally by landowner Albert Dryden, who had refused to comply with planning laws. After years of disputes, the local council decided to take action. Collinson was accompanied by a solicitor, council workers, and a demolition crew. Journalists and camera operators were also present to document the event. Officials expected some resistance from Dryden, but no one was prepared for what happened next. Around 9 a.m., Dryden emerged from his property holding a .455 Webley Mark VI revolver. Without hesitation, he aimed at Collinson and fired. Chaos erupted as Collinson collapsed. Some people ran for safety while others ducked behind trees and vehicles. But Dryden wasn't finished. He climbed over the fence, approached the wounded Collinson, and fired twice more. The horrifying scene was broadcast live on BBC's Look North, shocking the nation. During the attack, BBC reporter Tony Belmont was hit in the arm, and police constable Stephen Campbell was wounded in the leg. Dryden also shot at a police vehicle, forcing officers to retreat. When he ran out of bullets, he withdrew to his property, warning police that he had explosives. He had illegally obtained grenades and a 20mm cannon, making the standoff even more dangerous. Armed officers quickly arrived. Knowing Dryden's history and love of weapons, they were prepared for trouble. Negotiators tried to calm him, offering to install a field telephone for communication. When Dryden stepped out of his caravan to watch them, officers noticed his gun holster was empty. Seizing the opportunity, Sergeant John Taylor tackled him to the ground, and police moved in to make the arrest. The attack was one of the most shocking crimes ever witnessed live on British television. Harry Collinson's death devastated his family, and the footage of the incident haunted the public for years. Albert Dryden was born in 1940 in Consett, England, into a working-class family. His father worked at the Consett Iron Company, while his mother was deeply involved with the Salvation Army. Dryden was a private person, spending much of his time alone, obsessed with weapons. At just 11 years old, he obtained his first firearm, the same type of revolver he later used in the attack. Though he never had a firearms license, he accumulated an illegal collection of weapons over the years. Dryden built his bungalow in Buttsfield as a personal retreat, growing vegetables and raising livestock. He wanted to live independently, but the council ruled the construction illegal. Dryden argued that the building was hidden in a hollow and shouldn't require permission, but officials disagreed. Years of legal battles led to the final demolition order. By the time the crew arrived that day, Dryden's anger had reached its breaking point. His long fight with the council ended in a violent act that shocked the country. Following his arrest, Dryden was charged with taking Harry Collinson's life, attempting to harm council solicitor Michael Dunstan, and injuring P.C. Campbell and Tony Belmont. In court, he claimed he wasn't in a stable mental state, but the jury didn't believe him. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 2 life terms, along with additional prison time for the injuries he caused. Even behind bars, Dryden refused to take responsibility. He insisted he was the victim of a conspiracy and spread false claims, including accusations about Collinson's ties to law enforcement, none of which were ever proven. After serving 26 years, Dryden was released in 2017 due to poor health. A severe stroke left him unable to speak, and he was placed in a care home. His release was met with mixed reactions. For Harry Collinson's older brother Roy, there was no sympathy. Over the years, Dryden had sent Roy letters filled with bizarre claims but never expressed remorse. In September 2018, at the age of 78, Dryden passed away. His death brought no comfort to Collinson's family, only the end of a painful chapter. Roy made it clear that he felt nothing for Dryden's passing. The tragic events of June 20th, 1991 remain one of the most disturbing moments in British history. A years-long dispute over an illegal building escalated into a shocking crime, forever remembered by those who saw it unfold on live television. It was 2016, and the Polish morning show, Pitni na Śniadanie, was airing another lively episode. The hosts were chatting, the mood was upbeat, and everything seemed normal. But that day would take a shocking turn, making it one of the most unforgettable moments in live television history. The guest was Marcin Poloniewicz, a magician known for his daring tricks. He had been a semi-finalist on Poland's Got Talent and was invited to perform a stunt involving 4 brown paper bags, one of which contained a hidden sharp nail. The trick was simple. The show's host, Marzena Rogalska, would press her hand onto a bag while Marcin ensured it wasn't the one with the nail. During rehearsals, everything went smoothly. Marcin carefully set up the bags and the trick worked as expected. But when it was time to perform live, things went terribly wrong. With cameras rolling, Marcin instructed Marzena to participate. Trusting his expertise, she followed along. But as she slammed her hand down, a piercing scream filled the studio. Marcin had miscalculated, and Marzena's hand landed on the bag with the nail inside. The pain was immediate. The nail went straight through her palm, and as she pulled her hand back, it remained lodged in her skin. The studio fell into stunned silence. Marzena clutched her injured hand, her face filled with shock. At first, Marcin seemed confused, even nervously laughing, thinking it was part of the act. But when he saw the nail, his expression changed. Panic set in as he rushed to help, pulling the nail from Marzena's hand in a desperate attempt to minimize the injury. "I really pierced her," he muttered, horrified. Crew members quickly stepped in, escorting Marzena off the set and rushing her to the hospital. What was meant to be a simple magic trick had turned into a serious accident, played out in real time for viewers at home. Later, Marzena took to social media to reassure everyone. She explained that the trick had worked perfectly during rehearsals and emphasized that Marcin hadn't meant for this to happen. It was an accident, she wrote, asking people not to blame him. She also thanked her followers for their support and assured them she was recovering. Despite her attempts to calm the situation, the footage quickly spread online. The clip of the accident went viral, shocking viewers worldwide. Many questioned how Marcin could have made such a mistake. Some even speculated that it might have permanently damaged his career. As criticism mounted, Marzena defended him again, saying, "The internet is being harsh on him. He didn't mean for this to happen." She had forgiven him and hoped others would too, but not everyone was as understanding. Social media was flooded with comments, some mocking the mishap. One person wrote, "How to end a magic career in 10 seconds." Another said, "She handled it better than I would have." Others admired Marzena's composure and willingness to move on from the incident. The aftermath was difficult for both Marzena and Marcin. While she recovered physically, the emotional impact lingered. For Marcin, the backlash was intense. Even though the trick had been rehearsed without issues, one misstep had led to public scrutiny and doubts about his abilities. The incident also raised concerns about performing high-risk stunts on live television. Even with preparation, mistakes could happen, and the consequences could be severe. While Marcin's intent was never to cause harm, this accident showed just how unpredictable live performances could be. Years later, the footage of Marzena's injury still circulates online, a lasting reminder of that unforgettable moment. What was meant to be entertainment turned into a real-life emergency, proving that even the most well-planned performances can go terribly wrong. In the end, Marzena's response stood out the most. Despite the pain, she chose to forgive, showing an understanding that not everyone in her position would have. The accident was a moment in television history that won't be forgotten anytime soon. It was December 11th, 2022 in Solihull, West Midlands, when a devastating incident shook the community. 4 young boys, ages 6, 8, 10, and 11, were playing on the frozen surface of Babbs Mill Lake, a popular spot in Kingshurst. Suddenly, the ice gave way and they fell into the freezing water. Rescue teams arrived quickly, doing everything they could to save them. Firefighters, police officers, and paramedics worked in extreme conditions, with one officer even trying to break the ice with his bare hands. Unfortunately, despite all efforts, 3 of the boys, aged 8, 10, and 11, did not survive. The youngest, a 6-year-old, was the only one who made it out alive. The next day, BBC presenter Joanna Gosling reported the tragic news during a live broadcast. With over 20 years of experience, she had covered many difficult stories, but this one was different. As she spoke, her voice broke. "I have some really sad news to bring you," she said, struggling to hold back tears. "We are hearing that 3 boys, aged 10, 11, and 8, have died." She paused, clearly shaken. "I am so sorry. This is terrible news." Her emotional reaction was felt by viewers across the country. Journalists are trained to stay composed, but some stories are too painful to report without showing emotion. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, pulling the boys from the freezing water. They were rushed to Birmingham Children's Hospital and Heartlands Hospital in critical condition. Doctors did all they could, but the damage from the freezing temperatures was severe. Rescuers were deeply affected by the tragedy. The officer who tried to break the ice suffered mild hypothermia but later recovered. The emotional toll, however, was far greater. As news spread, grief took hold of the community. A memorial near the lake grew as people left flowers, stuffed animals, and messages for the boys and their families. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers came together to mourn. Members of emergency services, local politicians, and sports clubs, including Marston Green FC, also paid their respects. Superintendent Richard Harris of West Midlands Police spoke about the devastating loss. "The families are absolutely heartbroken, and we are doing everything we can to support them," he said. "With Christmas so close, it makes this even harder to bear." The tragedy also led to warnings from authorities about the dangers of frozen lakes. Richard Stanton, a commander from the West Midlands Fire Service, urged parents to talk to their children about the risks. "Frozen lakes, ponds, and reservoirs may look safe, but they can be deadly," he said. Joanna Gosling's reaction to the heartbreaking news spread widely. As a mother herself, the story deeply affected her, and her emotions reflected the grief felt across the country. Many viewers reached out to offer support, understanding how difficult it must have been to deliver such tragic news on live television. Later, she responded on social media, thanking people for their kindness. "I deeply appreciate the messages of support. It was shocking news, and my heart goes out to the families," she wrote. Earlier that year, she had also shown emotion while reporting on another major story, the return of Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe to the UK after years of detention in Iran. But the loss of 3 young children in Solihull felt even more personal. It was a reminder that behind every journalist is a human being who carries the weight of the stories they report. The deaths of the 3 boys left a lasting scar on their families, the rescuers, and the entire community. The small memorial at Babbs Mill Lake stood as a heartbreaking tribute to their young lives gone too soon. For those left behind, no words could ease the pain. The rescue teams did all they could, but nothing could bring the boys back. Their families would carry this grief forever. What started as a simple day of play ended in unimaginable loss. A tragedy that no one saw coming changed the lives of so many, leaving behind a community in mourning.